welcome Mr. Ivan Ho from Vetassess.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Consul General Mr. Teddy, for the invitation today. My name is Ivan Ho. I'm the International Manager for Western Australia and Northern Territory. On behalf of Vetassess, I'll be delivering this presentation, which covers our skills assessment services for trade occupations as well as the general occupations. Australia needs competent workers. We need a competent workforce. These workers need to have skills that are required by industry, that can be clearly identified, and skills that can be transferred from one workplace to another, as well as from one job to another. However, in addition to these technical skills, they need the ability to work with others, to problem solve, to organize their time, and to be able to use tools, equipment, technology to do the job. Vetassess, in our role as an assessing authority, we provide skills assessing services to assess migrants, to enable them to migrate to Australia, but at the same time to strengthen Australia's skill base and to allow us to be competitive in the global marketplace. Who is Vetassess? We are a government business enterprise. We have over 15 years of experience as a skills assessing authority for the Commonwealth Government. We provide a range of assessing services, including tests and exams, resources, and support type materials. We are an assessment-only registered training organization. So we assess trade occupations for migration, but we do so in the capacity of a contractor to Trades Recognition Australia. We are an outright assessing authority. We are an assessing authority for general occupations under migration regulations. Vetassess' core area of business is ready assessment for migration. This covers permanent migration for the General Skills Migration Program, as well as the employer-sponsored migration programs covering the Employer Nomination Scheme, the Regional Sponsored Migration Scheme. We also assess under the Offshore Trades Assessment Program on behalf of Trades Recognition Australia, the trade occupations, both work for permanent migration as well as for the 457 visa, work visa. In addition to the scope, we provide skills assessment services for licensed trades, covering occupations like electricians, plumbers, refrigeration mechanics. So why is an offshore skills assessment process required? Essentially, it's for formal skills recognition, for migrants to be recognized and to be provided with an Australian qualification if successful. Migrants who have skills in line with industry requirements and licensing requirements will be able to enter Australia. And essentially, what we want to achieve is successful labour market outcomes where employers in Australia are able to recruit the right sort of skilled workers. As part of the Offshore Trade Skills Assessment Program, we cover about 35 occupations across a range of trades, covering automotive, engineering, construction, electrotechnology, and food trades as well. We have assessing venues across the world. We offer trade assessment services in 15 countries, and we can also set up assessing centers and venues as required on a short notice. Assessing authorities, as an assessing authority, we also have assessing venues in Perth, Brisbane, Melbourne, and Darwin. I'll just run through briefly the process of assessment. Candidates that apply to Vetassess assess against Australian industry benchmarks, against the AQF, there's the Australian Qualifications Framework, and we'll be able to see what levels of competency they have against these qualifications framework. We use qualified assessors to review and collect evidence from candidates. This is a critical part of the assessment process. And we adopt a consistent approach across all trades, across all countries that we assess for. Finally, for formal skills recognition, the candidate would attain a nationally recognized qualification, or in the case if they're in a licensed trade, they will obtain an offshore technical skills record if successful. How the assessment process works essentially is a person has to self-assess through an online assessment tool called TradeSet, using information and resources that we have on our website, like the fact sheet and the training and employment evidence guide. They put together their training and employment portfolios for submission to Vetassess. This is stage 1 of the process. We will then assess their information and evidence, and we will give them an assessment outcome based on level 1 or level 2 or level 3. If they get a level 1 or 2 outcome, they proceed to the next stage, which is the practical skills or the technical skills interview. If they get a level 3 outcome, it shows that they are not able to proceed further. We'll give them information on why that is the case. With all licensed trades, practical assessment is critical. We cannot perform a technical interview in the case of licensed trades. What needs to be demonstrated to our assessors is essentially the employment and training that a person has had. If a person has formal qualifications, we would expect to see that the candidate has at least 2 years of post-qualification experience in their trade. In the case where they do not have formal qualifications, we would need to see at least 5 years of employment experience. This is a slide which shows the type of documentation that we'll need for the training and employment evidence. This includes resumes or CV, qualifications or certifications and licenses, any relevant industry memberships relating to the occupation, employment references. This is one of the key critical areas that we look at. A position description, tax records, pay slips, videos, photographs of a person performing their job. In the case of individuals who have run their own business, and while they are in a trade occupation, they've run their own business to supply trade services, we would expect to see things like customer testimonials, tax records, and supply invoices. The slide shows 2 of our practical assessment venues overseas, one for bricklaying and the other for electrical. Another assessment method that we use is for it's technical interview. This is a process where we have an assessor conduct the assessment with the candidate based on, it's really an exercise to gather evidence to show that the individual has the skills and knowledge to perform their role in their trade. The technical interview can take around 2 hours and is done through web technology. We also conduct face-to-face technical interviews at our Vetassess offices where required. So critically, the outcome of a skills assessment is the attainment of internationally recognized qualifications. So a tradesperson will get a certificate 3 in their relevant trade. If they are not successful, they will be issued with what we call a statement of attainment, and it shows the gaps in competencies that they have, and possibly allow them to identify areas where they need to train up for future. With the licensed trades, they do not get an Australian qualification. They get what's called an offshore technical skills record. The offshore technical skills record is then used to apply for a license in Australia, a provisional license, and then following further training they'll be able to get a certificate and be issued with a license. As part of the assessment process, we issue an assessment outcome letter, and this is something that will be required for the relevant visa application that a person is submitting. And finally, with a skills assessment, a person gets qualified with relevant qualifications, and it opens doors for them to seek employment in Australia. Pathway 2 is for applicants who have who are applying for the skills assessment process but who possess an Australian Certificate 3 qualification. So they might have gone through a course and then they realize that they need to go through the migration process. And that's when we will assess them under Pathway 2. Pathway 2 requires us to be able to see at least 3 years of full-time paid employment, the equivalent of 3 years full-time paid employment in the nominated trade. Of the employment, there has to be at least there must be at least 12 months paid employment in the last 2 years. Following this process, we would then proceed to a technical interview. It would not be subject to practical demonstration. I'll just move on a bit to talk about general occupations. This has been a fairly important area of late in terms of the number of applicants we have, applications we have received for general occupations. We are the assessing authority, as I said before, and we've been so for some time now. The area at Vetassess looking after general occupations is SRGO, or Skills Recognition General Occupations. We offer 2 types of assessments, one being a full skills assessment and the other being a qualifications-only assessment. With the full skills assessment, we look to assess a person's qualifications as well as their experience, whereas with the qualifications only, that's more for the graduate temporary visa, which is the subclass 485, where we only assess their qualifications. Since 1st July, we've added 2 new general occupations. These are the nutritionist and the primary health organization manager. So you can see in the slide, our turnaround times in terms of processing is around 10 to 12 weeks for general occupations. So the recommendation is that don't leave your assessments to the very last. If you've got the time to put your evidence together, we recommend that you give allowances of time so that it doesn't, you're not confronted with visa expiry issues. The range of occupations covers managers and professionals through to technicians, community and personal service workers, clerical and administrative workers, as well as sales workers. Not just any sales workers, but sales representatives, industrial product sales representatives, and also pharmaceutical products. The general occupations assessment criteria, it varies depending on where the general occupation actually sits. So we've got 6 groups ranging from A to F. Groups A and E require at least bachelor qualification. Groups C and D would require at least diploma level qualifications, and Group F is at a certificate level. With the full skills assessment, as I said before, we will look at the qualifications and at least a year's of experience. If the person does not have a year's experience, we will not consider them for the Group A occupations. They need a bachelor degree and at least 1 year's relevant experience. The other groupings, like Group E, allows a person to deviate a bit, so they can have a mixture of qualifications. Maybe their bachelor degree may not be so relevant, but they have another diploma that's relevant. So that's when we will look at both their qualifications and more years of experience. With the 485 visa, strictly it's an education that we assess, so we'll be looking at the type of qualification that they have received. Since the 1st of July, we've added the 2 occupations, project and program administrator, as well as specialist managers not elsewhere classified for assessment for 457 visas. These are the only 2 general occupations that assess currently for 457 visa, and it is really important that applicants using these occupations provide both their qualifications and experience to demonstrate that they can work in these occupations. So it's not an assessment of qualifications, it's an assessment of both qualifications and experience. This slide shows some useful references for people wanting to apply for a skills assessment. I would urge you to look at some of those websites. Particularly useful websites are the ANSCO, that's the Australian New Zealand Standard Classification of Occupation, and that's listed on the Australian Bureau of Statistics website, as is the ASCED, which is a classification of education. If you're looking at things like job description, you also want to look at the job outlook, which provides very useful information on jobs, the prerequisites, and also some indicators on average earnings. So employment evidence, I'll reiterate, it's the key for the skills assessment. You need to provide reference letters, statements of service, pay slips, and taxation documents. We recognize that there are instances where a person may not be able to get some of their documentation, so come talk to us. We'll be able to advise you on what you need for the assessment. And importantly, we have integrity checks that are conducted to verify that qualifications and employment claims are genuine. This is critical, and it is absolutely important that all information provided is genuine. To assist with the skills assessment process, Vetassess offers what we have is an advisory service for general occupations. It's really there to assist applicants put together their skills assessment applications. It guides them through candidates through the steps, and also identifies gaps in evidence. So we'll tell candidates wanting to apply for the assessment where they're falling over in terms of the amount of evidence that they've given may not be sufficient. So we'll give them some guidance in that regard. We also provide assessments for points test purposes. the Department of Immigration has authorized Vetassess to provide an opinion on qualifications and on employment to assist the department in its consideration of claims for the points test of the General Skilled Migration Program. I just want to make clear that this is a service that we provide, and the opinion provided by Vetassess is not binding on the department. It's merely an opinion, and it will help determine whether points can be awarded, but the decision rests with the Department of Immigration. We provide Chinese qualification verification service, which is not so relevant to this audience. So whenever you need to look at skills assessment requirements, come to our website. It's www.vetassess.com.au. We've got links on the slide showing shortcuts to the general occupations applications, as well as shortcuts to the trade occupations. Wherever in doubt, shoot us an email. The relevant email addresses are listed, and as Vetassess is a very proactive organization, we're more than happy to talk to prospectors with the application. So I'll be happy to take your questions at the later session, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. This was again another very important presentation, as most of our